and welcome everyone. In this video I'll be showing you how I make one of these Easter baskets. If you would like to see how I make this, keep watching. Okay, so this is everything that you'll need to make this basket. Oh, except for the embroidery bit. That's the embellishment that you make on it is up to you. So, and look, you can use a really pretty, Eastery kind of fabric if you want. If you don't have to use these as an Easter basket, they can be used for any kind of basket, and just any fabric you can use. Sorry, but I'm using just a plain white because I'll be embroidering on the front of this one. Okay, so these two pieces are my outside fabric pieces, and they measure 12 inches wide by 11 inches high. These are my two lining pieces. I'm just using a gingham here. They are also the same size, so 12 inches wide by 11 inches high. Next I have my fusible fleece, which will be adhered to the outside fabric. This is 11 and a quarter inches wide by 10 1/8 inch high. Next I have my woven fuse. That is the same as the fleece measurement, so it's 11 and a quarter wide by 10 1/8 high. Then I have the fabric and interfacing for the handle. The fabric for the handle is 6 inches wide by 16 inches long. The fusible fleece is also 16 inches long, but it is only 2 3/4 inches wide. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do with my basket is create my file. I use Embrilliance for doing this for my embroidery machine. Okay, so I've created a master. I purchased the bunny outline on Etsy. I just put some font in here, and I just put master, so that I know this is my master copy, and I just change everything from this one. Okay, so then I put in the name and set over here, and that's the name there. Now, I don't particularly want this font. Okay, so I've decided to go with this one. I didn't make you wait around to see me fussing around which one I wanted. Okay, so I've picked this one. It's Designs by Juki. It's a Molly Doodle. And I'm just going to space out the letters a bit over here. So space it out a bit. Might actually drop it down a little bit and widen it a little bit. You can make like little adjustments to it. It won't affect the file that much. Okay. I'm thinking that looks okay. It's centered. I don't usually use like the center button to center things. I usually just do it visually, because this ear drops down. It takes away, it'll put it centered, but it'll always look like it's on the right hand side. So you've got to, visualize as well how you want it to be. Okay, so I'm happy with this. So now I'm going to save this file. So I'll come up over here. And you can see that. I might move the camera a little bit. Alright, so I go file. Now I only want to save a stitch file. I don't need to have a working file for this, because I'm just going to stitch it once probably, and that's it. So I'm going to save the stitch file as, and it'll come into my files. I just have to find the bunny name. So I'll put it into bunny names, ready to make. And then I'll call it the name of the child's name, and then I usually put the name of the font that I've used next to it, and then save. So now that file is saved, and I'll need to put that onto my USB to transfer over to my machine. I'll just go grab it. Okay, so I've just inserted my USB and it's come up straight away, but I want to go back to my files. Where are we? Yep, these ones. Okay, so ready to make, there's only the one in there, so I'm going to right click and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go to my USB, to the EMBF, right click and paste. So now it's been placed onto my USB, and I'll take it now over to my machine and get that going. Okay, so this is my machine. It's a Janome Memorycraft 9900. It's a single needle, obviously. And we'll go over here. I've just turned it on, so I'm just going to say okay. And I want to bring up a file because I've put my USB in. I don't want to bring up the previous file. So this will take me to the files. This one here will take me to my USB. This will take me to everything that's on the USB. And then I just have to search for the file that I want, and this is the one I want here. And okay, so it's telling me here which size hoop I need to have. Yep, I know it's the big one, and that's my file there ready to go. And there's 1, 2, 3, I think there's only 4 steps in this one. Okay, so I'll now get the fabric ready to go on the hoop, and I'll show you what I do there. Alright, so this is my embroidery hoop. It's the size that I need for this project, and this is the fabric here. So for me, I've worked it all out where it needs to go, trial and error over time, but I make these a lot, so I know now. I fold the fabric in half. These are my halfway marks here on my frame, and I have these lines here which marks where I need to put the top of my fabric. If you're going to do it, you need to do a bit of working out as to where things go and how they go. I don't hoop anything. I actually float everything that I do. I just find it easier, and it works well for me. So here I'm just going to be lining up. So I'm going to be lining up my folded line with the line at the top, and then I just find the line at the bottom here, and there it's in the middle now, and here are my black lines, and I'm just going to squidgy that up a little bit so I just can't see them, and then that's in line with that, so I know I'm in the middle. Okay, now to keep it down, alright, so I use this birch quilt basting spray. Quick shake. I've already given it a shake before, but then I just put a little bit at the bottom there and I fold it down, and that's going to hold that in place. And I'll do the same at the top and put it down. Now I probably could just put it in the machine and do it like that, but I always like to pin as well. I don't want it to go anywhere. I don't want it to pull, all those sorts of things. So I just put some pins all the way around the outside. As long as your pins are away from where you're going to be sewing, you'll be fine. Now I know that my ears are probably going to start from about here, and the name will probably finish about here, and it's not wide at all, so it's not going to hit anything there. Okay, so the first step to do is to put it back into the machine and do the outline, so I know where to place my fabric for the applique, because this is an applique. So, but before we do that, I need to have my fabric ready for the applique. So this is my fabric here, and I always put on the back of it heat and bond, which is like a sticky that helps it to stay adhered to the bag for longevity, really, so over time. So what I'll do is I'll quickly just go and iron that onto here, and I'll be back. Alright, so I've placed the paper and ironed it onto the back of the fabric that I'll be using for my applique. Now I'm going to take my hoop and place it in my machine. Okay, so the hoop is in my machine. I'm now going to start sewing. of sewing this out. So I hold my thread and I push the start. Oh, got to lower the presser foot and start. I always do what's called a one stitch stop. I used to get a lot of bunching up of the cottons underneath. With this way, I don't know if you can see there, I'm zooming in a little bit so you can see. So if you can see here, the cotton from underneath has come up, and I'll just pull that through, and then I'll hold these two, and then it starts sewing. And once it's started, I'll pause and I'll cut those threads away, and that means I have a nice neat start to my sewing. There's no fabric, there's no cottons underneath. Alright, so now I'll take it back here and push start, and this is just going to do the outline of the bunny. I'll speed it up. See, there's a problem there. This doesn't happen every time, but it does happen sometimes, and it's good to show you. I think it's a problem with the file. I'm not completely sure because it doesn't happen all the time. There's my cotton, it's all bunched up, so it could be a cotton issue. I have no idea. So I'm just gonna snip that, pull some thread through. Actually, I might just take that out and rethread, because sometimes rethreading just resets everything. So I'll just quickly do that. And then we're back here. Now I'm going to do a manual one stop, so all I do to do that is up here is the up down button there, so I will push that, it'll send my needle down, and then if I hold this cotton and press it again, it will bring up the underneath cotton like so. And I'll just hold it and off I go again. So I will pause, and I like to snip them out the way and keep going. Alright, so really the person who digitized this bunny didn't need to do the 2 rounds here, like they went round and then a second round went around. You know, a lot of stitching is letting you know is where to place your fabric so that you've got it in the right spot. It's more important on the next step to have 2 stitches around, because that's when you're cutting it. This is just for a placement, so it's sort of a wasted bit. Anyway, here's our piece that we're using for the applique, and then I'm just going to peel off the backing. As you can see, it's got a shiny bit to it. That's the glue, so when we iron it later, it will actually fuse onto the fabric. So what we do with this piece is you have to cover everything that's underneath. So I just place it on, then I'll lift it up, lift to the sides just to make sure that it's all going to be under, and lift it at the top. Yep, it's going to be all under. Okay, so then we're going to do step 2. So put our foot down, press start. It's going to do a 1 stitch stop because that's what I like, and then we keep going. Now after a couple of stitches I stop, I snip those off and keep going. Now with this step I just watch it and just sort of make sure that the fabric is laying down. I'm not putting any pressure on the machine at all, it's just doing its own thing. I'm just sort of making sure that it's flat. Now it's doing the second run around, which is important on this one because we're going to be cutting really, really close to the stitching. Okay, so now I'll remove the hoop from the machine, and I'll take you over to the other camera, and I'll show you how we cut around that. The next step is to cut around our applique. I love these scissors. They're Fiskars, and if you see, they have this bent up part, which makes it easier to cut out for applique. You're not going to be cutting into your fabric. I find it easiest to bend up and cut around this way with the fabric up in the air, and then just move it around and cut around like so, all the way around. So not so hard. Alright, so not so hard to do that. Now we're ready for the next step. We're going to place the hoop back into the machine. Okay, so placing the hoop back in the machine. There we go. So the next part that's going to sew out will be the satin stitch all the way around the bunny. So we'll just start that. Of course it's going to have that one stitch stop. I pull that out. A few stitches, stop, and off we go again. Alright, that's finished. Now I'm going to change our cotton over, because I want the name to be in a darker colour so it stands out a bit more. Okay, so I've threaded my darker colour. I'll drop the foot down. It'll start with the one stitch, and there we go. The name is going to start coming out now. Just taking it a bit closer. Okay, so there's the name finished. Looks beautiful. We'll take it out and we'll have a look on the other camera. Alright, so there we go. It's all done. We can now remove it from the hoop. Put that away. Okay. And now I'm just going to take all the pins out quickly. It's nice and easy. Okay, let's have a look at the work. I like to go over the front part and find any little cottons or anything. Jump stitches, like I have these tweezers that are pointy nose or pointy edged, and I just find them perfect for doing these little jobs like this. So it's all cut away nicely. Looks really good. Okay, I'm going to turn it over. Okay, so on the back here I'm just going to rip, because this is a tearaway stabilizer. Okay, get rid of that. And then these tweezers also help me here to lift up and pull down the tearaway from inside here. You want to get rid of this because it's paper, and then if the basket ever gets washed, this won't bunch up in between anything. So it's just good to get rid of all the paper. Okay, so that through under here. It's hard to see because the paper's white and the background is white. Sometimes you can get on a roll and just tear all the way around like that. Look, the tiny little bits, not too fussed about. Okay, so that's the back, like that. In the front, I'm really happy with that, come out really well. Alright, so the next part is to put all of our interfacings on. So that's why I do this first, especially with the embroidery. If you're doing heat transfer vinyl or something else, you don't really need to, but I wanted to hide all my stitches. I didn't want my stitches to be shown on the inside of the bag. Okay, so for the outside fabric, I use the fleece lining, fleece interfacing, and I'll just place that on like that, and I've already done it to the other pieces, ready to go into the, well, I don't have a heat press. I call it a heat press, but it's not a heat press. I've got an Elna press, so I just use that. Okay, and then I've got these, my lining pieces lined up, ready to go as well. So I'll do that. This is my Elna press, and this is how I do it. And I'll count to 15 in my head. And release. Now, unfortunately, the bed of this is not big enough to do the whole piece in one, so I have to do it in two. But one day I'll get a press where I don't have to. But for now, this is what I have. And it's a stepping stone. You could be in the same position. You're just starting out. You don't have the money to buy all the great stuff that you want. Okay, so just keep going on with every step, each piece. Okay, so all of my pieces now have been ironed on. So they're all the pieces. With the handle, you just place it in the middle as best you can. Now the next step is to get this ready for sewing. So you'll need your iron, and you just fold in the edges, a little iron or press. Oops, cut, don't pull. Okay, do the other side. Now I'm just going to fold this over and match the edges up as best I can, like that, all the way along, letting the iron get it into place and get it nice edge to sew along, like that. Okay, so then that's our handle ready to go. So to sew them together, I'm going to place our lining pieces right sides together. Okay, I use clips and just clip them together. Okay, so I'll go here, just put one in the bottom. And you don't have to. I'm just doing this really for your benefit today. I don't usually, I just go for it. Alright, and also with your outside, you do exactly the same thing. So you want the right sides facing each other. Place them together and clip in place. Okay, now when we're sewing the lining, we're going to leave a gap in the side of the lining here for turning. It's going to be our turning hole. And also I put my label, but I put it on the opposite side to my turning hole. So we'll show you that when we go to the sewing machine. And off we go. The first thing we're going to sew is the handle. Now I want it to have a nice edge, so I'll find where I want it to go on my machine. I'll line it up. I want a long stitch, so I'm going to set it to past 4. Alright, and just start back stitch, and then I'll just, this side is harder because you've got to make sure that you're keeping your fabrics together, and sew it along. Like so. Okay, the other side's a lot easier because you just place it where you want it, and then as long as you have your guide where you want it, you just go. And the fingers just hold it in place, and then we finish off there. The next part is the outline outside. Make sure that the bunny ears are up the top, so I'm not sewing the wrong place. And I'm going to do it with a 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I always back stitch. So this one we can just sew all the way around. We don't need to leave any openings or anything. All the way around. At the end. Now with the lining, got to make sure I've got going the right way. Yes, I do. So this is the top, and also I need a label. I make my own. If you want to know how to do them, leave me a message down the bottom and I'll attempt to make a video about how I make them. So with the lining, it's just the same as the outside fabric. Probably should have moved my stitch length down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go down. I'm going to stop there, lift and come down. Now what you have to do with this one is make sure that you've got at least 3 inches from the bottom up there. So I have a tape measure around my neck, so I can guess, like, as long as I start sewing before that 3-inch mark, I'll be fine, because we're going to box the corners and we need to cut the corners off. Okay, so that's the book. The sewing in this area isn't as important, so I'm going to go all the way along the bottom. I've got to get used to that. This machine is quite new to me. Still getting used to all the bits and pieces. Okay, so on this side, I want to sew down, and I want to put my label sort of just at the top in a bit from there. So I'll do that. I'll fold over my label like that, and oops, hold it together, place it underneath, and I'm going to look at where my sew line is. It's about here, so I know it's going to be okay. And then just sew it in, and then finish off there like that. Okay, and then now we're going to go and cut the corners, ready to box them. Okay, so now we're going to box our corners. So just making sure that's the top, that's the top. Got the 2 bottom corners. I have a square of cardboard that's been cut to 3 inches just to make it easier for me. So then I can just place that on each corner and just draw a line like that. If you have a ruler, sorry, you don't know, one of these kind of rulers, you could always just measure on the 3-inch line, 3-inch line, like that as well. You can just measure with your tape measure and make a line. And you just take your scissors and just cut them all out. Once they're all cut out. Okay, now that we've cut our corners out, we're going to box the corners. So we bring the two pieces together like that, and I open out and check inside that my seams are going to come close together. I mean in line, sorry. And then I put a little clip at the end to hold it in place. So I'm going to do that to all 4. I open up my seams and do it that way. You don't have to. Some people, I'll show you on this one, like to nest them, like when you're doing quilting, you put them to one side and then you put the other one to one side and bring them in together like that. It just depends what you like to do and which way you prefer to do it. This is how I like to do it. So I just stick with that, making sure that the line up, and not just line up near the end, because people will do this. They'll go, yep, that's near the end, that looks all right. But when you actually open it up down where your sewing's going to be, it may not be directly on the line together. It might be off a little bit like that there, and then your seams aren't going to match up. So I always go further down and make sure that they're all lined up in place. Okay, now we'll go over to the machine and we'll sew along the edges of all of those. Okay, we're here at the machine and now we're going to sew. It doesn't matter from which way you sew them, whichever you feel comfortable. We're going to sew down and make our boxing. So all I do is just grab this end, make sure they're together, push it down, put under my foot, go back a bit, going to back stitch a little bit, and then sew across. There's one thing here I do like to do, and that's just make sure, I didn't want to do that, but to lift my foot and just make sure that it's sitting underneath flat, and it is. So then I'll grab the other end and just sew along and back stitch at the end. Okay, now do the other side and do all of them. Okay, so now we leave the lining the way it is. We turn out the outside bag to the right way. So we have that turned out the right way. And what we're going to do is now put the handle on. So to do this part, I need a pair. Okay, I grab my scissors, I grab my handle, and I'll just fold it in half and cut a little snip like that. Just makes a little triangle shape in there to mark the middle. So I'll do the same, cut those off, do the same on the other side there, and just shows me where the middle is. So then I grab my bag, and I'm on the outside of the bag. I place that little divot that we just made, triangle, with the lining the seam on the bag, sorry. Then I take the strap around the outside and I'll just roll up the bag in the middle and then bring it around to the other side. Find my little triangle shape, match it up with the seam and pin. Now I'm just going to like tack these in place really. It's just a little, you know, you want it to be within your seam, so not too far down, close to the edge there is fine, and just go across each one. Now the reason that we fold the bag up there is to keep our handle nice and straight, because if you have this all the way down there, it will tend to turn on the side, and we want it to be as straight as we can have it. So making sure that the other part of the bag is out of the way. You just want to tack that in place like that. Okay, so then the next part is to place the outside of the bag on the inside of your lining. So you've got the right sides together, okay? So I'll just grab my bag from the inside, push it in like that, and then you're just matching up the side seams again. So, and I open up my seams. I'm matching it up with the triangle here that I made with my scissors. There you go. So I'm going to clip that one, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. Open that out. There. And then what I'll do is I'll just put my fingers on the inside where I've clipped it and pull a little bit, and that it makes the bag line up pretty good. If I'm not happy, I can just move it around, and then I'll sort of weave it in, and I'll just put a little clip in the middle and do that on both sides, because you want it even as you can all the way around. Okay, so that's that. Then you want to do your stitch all the way around, which we'll do. I'll just put this under the, and do a back stitch. Here we go. When I come to each clip, I'll just, you know, double check that the lining and the fabric is lined up like that, and then just keeping my 3/8 and 1 centimeter or 1 centimeter seam allowance. There we go. That's going over the handle. If you want, you can just go back over the handle bit to reinforce it. There's me. And then just go all the way around. And back stitch at the end. Now we're going to take the bag and we'll turn it out. So we find our hole that we created earlier in the side here, and you just pull it through and then gently pull it through. You know, just pull bit by bit, gently. You don't want to tear your seams. So just a little bit at a time. Go around and round, pulling it all out. And then, so that you have your bag and your lining, and you'll have your opening here. If you just stick your fingers inside the opening and pull, and then flatten that out like that, that gives you your seam line to sew along. Because that's all I do. I don't hand sew them or anything. It takes too long. And look, if you get it nice and close to the edge, you won't even see it. And then pull these together as close as we can. And just down the side and back stitch at the end. I've got my snippers on me. Okay. So that's the seam sewn up like that. Okay, the next step is to push the lining into the bag and bring your handle around. Okay, and what we're going to do now is take it to the ironing board and iron a nice crisp edge around the top before we top stitch around. Okay, so alright, we're back here. I've got the iron heating up. I've got this little mini ironing board, which is good for this. It's a bit hard on a flat surface. You can do it. You'd probably do it from the back forward like that, and then iron that. I just found it easier with this, just like a little ironing board, because then I can see from what it's going to look like on the outside. I just like that look, and I like it to, I don't want to see the lining from the front, so I just sort of push it down. So I'll roll it like this to get it to the top, and then maybe just push it a little bit forward. I always use a cloth, was meant when I remember mostly, but I try to always remember to use it, because sometimes there's stuff on your iron that you don't want, especially on white. Okay, now where the handle is, it's the same thing. Just gonna push it down and around, put the cloth on, give it a bit of a shot of steam so you get a nice edge, and then when you do your top stitch it'll just look really pretty along the edge there. Okay, so that's done all the way around, and we'll take it to the machine and sew our final top stitch. Okay, now alright, so now I'm going to do the top stitching around. I like to start at the back of the bag near the handle. So we have the front here, this is the back, and I like to start around there. So I get that under my foot like that, and just make sure that the other side of the bag is out of the way. Line up where I'm going to be doing my stitch, do back stitch, and off again. Then I line it up, making sure everything is out of the way underneath. And a great way to get a good top stitch straight is to find a place, and just you look at that one place. You don't look at where the needle is or going up and down. You'll go wonky. You need to find a spot on your machine or on your foot, wherever you want it to be. So mine's sort of halfway between where the dog teeth are there. So if I just keep it on there and I look, that's where I'm going to keep looking. That's where I want my fabric to go through. And that way you'll find you'll get better and better and get a straighter line. Look, mine aren't perfect, but they have improved heaps. And always backstitch at the end. Trim your threads. Like that. And there's your bag. I'll take it over to the other camera and you can have a good look at it. And here is our finished basket. You can see inside, all completely lined, really pretty. You can see our tag. Can't really see our seam too much where we've sewn it up. We've got a nice handle. We've got our beautiful embroidery on the front. Happy overall. Okay, then we have a nice picture of our bag. Handle stands up. Looks really pretty. Overall, really happy with that. Hope you like this project. Okay. If you have found this video to be of value to you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. Until next time, keep making.